Hi everyone, my name is Prakriti Panwar. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Ithacan.
I'm Eamon Corbo. I'm the news editor of the Ithacan.
And today we're sitting down with President Jerne Cornish for our annual Q&A. President Cornish, thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure.
Let's get started with Ithaca Forever, which is the strategic plan that you've been leading. It's a framework of how we continue to build upon our mission and values. How has the implementation of that been, given our recent challenges of lower enrollment and the budget deficit?
I mean, I think that when we created it knowing that things would change. You know, one of the strategic planning goals is to determine and maintain an appropriate size for our structures across the institution. So we knew we were going to be smaller. Another goal was to support collaboration and interdisciplinarity, which we have been doing. Another goal was to be a national model for student success, engagement, and well-being. The budget challenge is real, and we have been doing the work we need to do to align the size of our faculty and staff with the size of our student body, and that's a continuing process. It's never one and done. It's something that we have to do annually, and that's what we've been doing.
Speaking about the alignment and the budget, I know our goal is to balance it by 2028, and this might be a big question, but what if that doesn't happen, and is there a plan B of any sorts?
It will happen. And so the reality is this: I have been charged to get us back to balance. And so we will have a deficit of no greater than $4 million by FY27, and we will be at balance in 28. I'm not accepting any other alternative. How about that? We are, even using this year as an example, we knew we needed to increase the top of the funnel. We needed to get more applications. If you increase the top of the funnel, by the time you get down to the bottom of the funnel, you have an opportunity to yield more students. And a year ago, we had 12,447 applications. Today, we have 14,278 applications. A year ago, we had 481 deposits. Today, we have 502 deposits. So we are ahead of where we were a year ago, and this is all a part of our strategy to increase the number of applications so we can increase the yield so that we can get back to balance. But the goal is not just to get to balance, it's to be beyond balance so that we can continue to invest in the institution.
For sure. I guess just following up on that, what are some of the other aspects that we're focusing on other than applications and enrollment to balance that budget, and do you foresee any other hurdles in that process?
So we need to come up with revenue generating ideas. So let me give you an example. Emerson Suites, that's a great spot. We have free parking on this campus. The convention center downtown doesn't have free parking. People like to use our space because it's revenue generating, and you know, our in-house dining is excellent. So once we renovate the suites, that will be an opportunity for us to bring in more folks from the outside to use that space as a conference space, particularly in the summertime. Imagine if we could use the Circle apartments. If we had some circles that were available for rental in the summertime, that would be revenue generating. Sports camps, revenue generating. So we have ideas to generate revenue that will help us get beyond balance.
For sure.
What do you attribute as some of those reasons why there's been that growth in applications and deposits that you were talking about?
Our students are excited about Ithaca College. Students are the best ambassadors for the college. And so when our students are excited about what they do, when they post on social media, when people come here, we have seen yield higher for students who come and see what we're about. So once you visit the campus, it's more likely that you will come here. And we've got great programs. We've got great people. You know, we just went through Middle States, and one of the comments that the Middle States chair said to me at the end was, you know, the team is leaving here having experienced the sense of authenticity on your campus. He said, with everything that you all have been through, the sense of community, how we value one another, not only is it commendable, it is remarkable. And so that says a whole lot about this community. And I was proud of us when he said that, because he saw us for who we are.
Yeah, talking about Middle States, what can you share with us about the Middle States reaccreditation process at this time?
We can't say anything publicly until we get the final report from the Middle States Commission. But I can say that the visit went very well.
Amazing. I want to pivot a little bit to talk about some of this discontent that the student body has expressed regarding the budget deficit. There was some discontent about how communication about cuts to funding have been rolled out. For example, there was the $600,000 cut from the RA budget, which has been reversed, but people were frustrated about that. The cut from club funding that even SGC, which is the body that gives out funding, wasn't aware about until very late in the game. I'm curious to know, what does the workflow for communicating those decisions look like, especially with regards to funding that impacts the student body?
I think that we learned through this process that we could do a better job of communicating. I mean, we've been clear that we have to align the size of the faculty and staff with the student body. We have to align our budget dollars with our resources. We have to do this. We also have to make decisions that align with our values. And so while eliminating board for RAs would have generated more than $600,000 in savings, at the end of the day, that decision did not align with our values as an institution, which is why that decision was reversed.
Were you at all consulted when that decision was being made?
We make decisions as a team, you know, and so every unit was given a budget target for reductions. And so that unit listed all of the possibilities, and this was one of the possibilities.
Just looking back, how do you think you would have handled that communication now that we've seen what students felt about that?
Even beyond seeing what students felt about it, we as a leadership team needed to have another conversation. You know, we made decisions a year ago as to what we were going to enact within the 25-26 year. What did we learn as a team? We learned as a team, we need to review those decisions when we're ready to pull them one more time, just to make sure that we still want to walk down that particular road. So that was a lesson we learned.
Do you plan on consulting students going forward when these decisions are made?
Consulting students?
When you do decide to make, for example, from what I heard, one of the feelings of discontent stemmed from the fact that RAs were not looped into the conversation where they're the ones receiving money for the board. So I'm kind of curious to know if there are plans to loop in students when those big decisions are being made.
So sometimes, I mean, as an executive body, we have a responsibility and we make executive decisions, and students are not responsible for making executive decisions. Could we have informed students sooner? Absolutely. But to consult students about that decision, that is not something we would have done. That's up to us, and we own that.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about a shared value, transparency. You've been very vocal about being as transparent as you can with the community as we work towards balancing our deficit, and we as members of the student press want to be as transparent as we can. That said, some staff members do not necessarily feel comfortable talking to the Ithacan. Some members of the Executive Council don't feel comfortable talking to the Ithacan, and that makes it harder for us to talk about what leadership feels. What are some of the ways that we can work together to uphold that spirit of transparency?
I cannot be responsible for people's level of comfort or discomfort in having a conversation. I can only model what matters to me. And so they see me and they see my willingness to have a conversation. Some people are just not comfortable, and I can't make them comfortable when that is not their natural. I don't own that.
In a situation like that, how, I guess even just as students, I'm wondering if you have tips for us as to how we can navigate an issue like that. For example, with our coverage of the budget cut, we had some issues reaching out to people who made these decisions, and we're responsible for communicating them, but all we had to rely on was statements from students, which was enough for us to go ahead and publish the story. But I guess I'm kind of wondering how we can get essentially more sides to a story when we're facing that hurdle of leaders not necessarily wanting to talk to us.
Again, I don't control how the leaders respond to you. I know that when you ask me a question, I'm going to answer. So the only person that I can control in this situation is me. And so, you know, I've never known Tim Downs to shy away from a conversation. So, you know, I would ask, and you've always asked respectfully. That's all I have.
Yeah, we'll keep doing that.
Yeah, and going off that conversation just about us as the Ithacan, is there anything that you would like to see more of from the Ithacan or anything we should be doing differently from your perspective?
All I can do is commend you. When I think about the Ithacan, my feelings about the Ithacan when I arrived versus my feelings about the Ithacan today, I think that you are reporting accurately, responsibly, and I especially appreciate you owning things when things go awry. There was something that happened with a faculty member earlier this semester, and that faculty member reached out to you and you owned it. And so I just appreciate you being responsible journalists. You may be students, but you are also journalists. And I think, you know, I commend you for the facts that you report. I'm grateful for that.
Thank you for saying that. I want to pivot a little bit to you. When does your contract with the college end, and do you plan on staying?
Really? My contract ends in March of 2027.
Do you know what next steps after that are?
Rephrase. My contract ends June the 30th of 2027. In March, I will be here. I will have been president for 5 years.
Do you plan on staying after that?
I would like to stay, and I can say that there is conversation on the board level as to whether or not they are going to renew my contract, extend my contract, or not. And so I will know something definitively by June 30th of 2026.
I see. Are there any talks of the executive council or you taking salary cuts any time in the future, given where we are with the deficit, or if we do continue to struggle with it?
We have not had that conversation.
Is that something you're open to?
We have not had that conversation. And I will say that when I think about salary structure across the institution, we are below the mean, below the average. And so to ask people to take a salary cut where we are not where we'd like to be, I don't think that that is a solution to our problem. We've got to make sure that our revenue exceeds our expenses. And like I said in the student governance meeting, you know, your parent might give you a budget, and you are blessed that when you blow your budget, you can always call your parent for more. I can't call my parent for more. So we've got to live within the means of our budget, and that's what we're trying to do.
I'm kind of curious to know, I was talking to Tim Downs a couple weeks ago, and he said that that is something that can be talked about. And I'm curious to know, at what point would you start talking about that, or is that completely off the table?
I'm not going to say that it's on the table right now. There was a period in time where the college did not get raises for a couple of years in a row because we couldn't. And so at some point you run the risk of losing faculty and excellent talent because you aren't paying your people what they're worth. And so that's not on the table today, but it doesn't mean that when we know how we're going to come in, that it may not be on the table. It might have to be on the table. Mm-hmm. We will know May 1st how many students have deposited for next year. Our target is 1,200 students. We get 1,200 students, we will meet that mandate of $4 million deficit. If we get more than that, then that will make us, it'll get us where we need to get even faster. If we don't hit our target, then we're going to have to think of some hard things. You know, we have a list of about 10 levers, I'm going to use that word intentionally, that we can pull if we don't hit the target. I'm not going to discuss those levers with you, but I will tell you that we do have them.
That was going to be my follow-up, so thank you.
Yeah. I guess pivoting a little bit, I think the past year and a few months have been kind of a tumultuous time for higher education in general, and I'm curious how you're addressing concerns of academic freedom and a potential self-censorship with faculty.
For me, academic freedom has been without question at this institution. We support academic freedom, and our faculty have academic freedom. As I say all the time, all we can control is this sphere that is Ithaca College. We are not Cornell. Mm-hmm. We are not Syracuse University, which is experiencing budget cuts right now that everybody's very well aware of. And so we try to do what we can do here, and we have integrity. And so we aren't self-censoring, and we don't support that. And so I'm very proud of our faculty and where we are and how we operate when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how are you communicating with prospective students and their families about how the current landscape of higher education and the federal pressures on higher education might impact them over their 4 years here?
I mean, the biggest thing we are concerned about is access to student loans. You know, the elimination of the Grad Plus loan, for example, impacts our graduate students' ability to finish college. And we know, I was in Albany last month advocating for New York State to have state-backed loans so that students could, you know, borrow money if they need to finish their graduate education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and was the renaming of the BIPOC Unity Center to simply just the Unity Center related to federal tax on diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education, or is there another reason that kind of guided that decision?
I think that played a role. I really do. You know, one of our strategic plan goals is to be a national model of colleges committed to the values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But I've taken that a step further, and this is my belief, that when we are equitable, when we are inclusive, and when we make students feel like they belong, diversity is a given. You don't even have to say the word. And so we are focusing on equity, inclusion, and belonging.
I want to pivot to another hot topic in higher ed, AI. The college has been very vocal about embracing and experimenting with AI. Mm-hmm. That said, there are professors and students and departments that don't feel comfortable integrating it into their education just yet. Mm-hmm. As you're leading this institution, how do you plan on balancing exploring with AI and adapting to it, mm-hmm. While catering to groups of people who may not be ready for that just yet?
It's a nuanced conversation. There are early adopters and there are resistors. We are in an institution of higher ed. Skepticism is expected and valued. And so both things can be true at the same time. AI can be a positive, but there are some environmental concerns about AI that are real. And so we've got our posture here is that we want to have a human approach to AI. So we talk about HI, human intelligence, as well as AI, but we know we're also preparing students to enter an AI-powered workforce. And so if we don't give students the skills, knowledge, and dispositions necessary to get gainfully employed when they leave here, then we aren't doing our job. So I welcome both. You know, we can debate, we can have difficult conversations. What we cannot do is bury our heads in the sand. We've got to talk about it. Where it makes sense, use it. Where it doesn't make sense. And for some of the creatives really struggle with using AI, and I understand that. We've got to be able to have the conversation. And again, you need these AI skills as you go into an AI-powered workforce.
Yeah, and shifting a bit, over the past year, we've been reporting on a Title IX lawsuit against the college where a faculty member alleges that he experienced a hostile sexual environment and an anti-LGBTQ+ work environment on campus. I'm just curious, amid these allegations, how are you supporting LGBTQ+ students, faculty, and staff on campus? We
are LGBTQIA+ friendly. As a queer Black president, I am comfortable being my authentic self every day on this campus. And I encourage people to be comfortable being themselves on this campus, no matter who you are. You know, we will support all students.
Yeah, speaking of supporting all students, I'm curious what institutional support the college has for international students amid the crackdown, the ICE crackdown, and if that has changed at all since the past year.
So just like last year, we continue to support our international students. We've made it an opportunity for international students to stay on campus in the summertime if they feel unsafe going home. One of my personal gifts to the college on Giving Day has been the Student Emergency Relief Fund, and I will do that again this year because, again, support for our international students means a whole lot to us, and we will continue to support them and protect them.
Yeah, and I guess a little bit more of a lighthearted question. You've been traveling across the U.S. this academic year, and I'm curious about how traveling to different cities, how that process has been going, and if that's been successful.
Our alums are so excited about this place. Our travels have been good for the college, let me put it to you that way. We've received gifts and we continue to receive gifts. Traveling to New York City to see, I was just at CNN, we talked about this. I was also at ABC, had a great conversation with David Muir. I get flummoxed every time I see him because I think he's very cute. So it was nice to have a picture or two with him. I was in Boston where I, talked with the former chair of the board, Tom Grape. And so we just have people who are really excited about Ithaca College still. And I am delighted that I get to travel to talk about what's happening here. I was down in Florida. I went to 4 different cities in Florida. And so our alums are looking, they're watching, but they're also supporting what's happening here. And that's very exciting.
That's exciting to hear. I guess just to wrap up, what is something you're looking forward to in the coming academic year?
I'm looking forward to having a balanced budget by FY28, by meeting the required mandate for FY27, and for people to continue to see what's happening here. This is a great college. It really is. And I love how our students support one another, and we're doing exciting things. So I want people to come here, talk to our students. Again, you are the greatest ambassadors for this college. I can talk to when I'm blue in the face, but students want to hear from other students. And so it's a great spot, and I'm glad to lead it. It has been the honor and privilege of my life to do this work.
Yeah, I just had another question. We talk a lot about balancing the budget, and that is obviously the institutional goal at this point, but I guess, do you know what's next? Like, once that goal is achieved, do you have plans for how you would like to take the college?
So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to seat a new strategic planning committee. Ithaca Forever has run its course. And so we have 3 co-chairs for the next strategic plan. The new co-chairs are Provost Melanie Stein, Vice President for Strategic Operations and Initiatives, Dave Weil, and the Dean of Faculty for Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, Dr. Belisa Gonzalez. So the 3 of them are in the process of, developing with me the charge for the next strategic planning committee, and we will seat that committee by the end of this school year, and that work will begin next year, so that by the fall of 27, we will have a new strategic plan for the college. I will tell you that it will not have 9 goals. Ithaca Forever had too many goals, and so we could not assess that the way that we should have and could have because there were just too many goals. So there will be fewer goals. This plan ended up being 7 years in duration, Ithaca Forever. The next plan really should be 3 to 5 years in duration. Let's have fewer goals, let's do them well, and let's accomplish them in a shorter time span. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you wanted to add or suggest that we didn't ask?
I want to congratulate you on finishing your time here. I want you to stay present over the next month and a half. Don't be so worried about the future that you miss the present. I want you to learn from those who are around you because you are the future of the Ithacan. Keep asking questions, keep making yourself available, keep reporting the facts, and I look forward to see how you develop. And I'll see you next year, probably, again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Cornish.
Thank you.